Hi folks, specialised here. Now, bit of a return to some of what my channel's really made for, and that's looking at British, particularly Sheffield, made knives. And this is one by a cutler who's unfortunately no longer with us, but was one of the last of the true knife makers in Sheffield that had been there, served an apprenticeship, and done the full thing. Now I think there's only about 5 companies left making knives, which is a total of probably less than a dozen cutlers. But this particular one I got from Congi's Knife Sales. And Congi's, I'm not sponsored by them. I have no connection with them other than the fact that they've been my chief supplier of knives for most of the last year, because Mark will do trades, and in my current straitened finances, I haven't got any cash to put in to buy knives, so I've been trading my sort of non-Sheffield knives for Sheffield knives, and Mark is very good. He'll usually do a trade on most things, occasionally selling things for somebody which you can't do a trade on, but it's not something I've had a problem with. Anyway, Mark Congleton, Congi's Knife Sales. It's congiknifesales.com on the web. He's on Facebook as well, and he shows all his new knives. That when they come into stock, he usually puts them up on Facebook. So if you're watching that, it'll point you in the right direction. If you see something you like, if you see certain knives, like anything by A. Wright and Sons, it will go almost instantly. I'm not quite sure why, but suddenly these are like gold dust, which is, well, it's interesting. Anyway, it's not about Arthur Wright. This is about Trevor Ablett. Trevor Ablett ended up completely on his own making knives, and when he retired, he sold most of his equipment, and I think a lot of parts to Michael May. And as a result, whenever you see a Trevor Ablett knife or a Michael May knife, you could be almost mistaking one for the other. There are differences, and actually I think with not too much experience, it's quite easy to tell an Ablett and tell a Michael May from one another. They are, and not just from the fact that this has got double bolsters and there's got double bolsters, and these are brass. They're both brass, whereas most of the, this is the Ettrick pattern knives, tend to be with a single bolster and in nickel silver. Sometimes they vary. This was an Arthur Wright. This one is a Stephen Cocker. And Stephen puts a similar sized bolster to the Ablett May knives, but still it's quite different in shape and pattern. I think it's difficult with the Stag to tell so much, but when you look at the wooden ones, Trevor Ablett puts a flat here. You can actually see it quite well in this knife. There's a sort of flat area from here right the way through the bottom bolster. Michael May does something very similar. Most manufacturers, including Arthur Wright here, tend to make them kind of more just generally rounded. This isn't a mistake or something he's done to get around cut some corner or whatever. This is obviously a design style that these two both like. There are differences with these two knives in other ways, but being handmade, sometimes it's a little difficult to discern what's just a difference between one knife and another, and what's the difference in style. And I think the top bolster is where the difference in style tends to come. This tends to be an almost octagonal shape with relatively soft corners, but you have a flat and a flat and a flat. Obviously the front and back of the knife, and you've got the same on the other side. So you've got a total of 8 different sides. But you can see they're clearly built on the same platform from the same template, because if you look at the hole patterns, they're exactly the same. Now, I say this one is a wood, and I can't remember what wood it is, but it doesn't really matter. This one is buffalo horn, and there is a bit of figuring in here. It's not the best buffalo I've ever seen in the world, but it's far from the worst. So it makes a very attractive knife. Now, the other thing that these two have in common that is different to most Ettrick pattern knives is that most Ettricks are Warncliffes. Funny, this one's quite a strong spring, but a soft snap. Odd. Yes, so this is what Ettricks normally have, is a Warncliffe blade, and I and many others thought for a long time this was the original Warncliffe pattern. It isn't. The Ettrick really only comes around about the very early part of the 20th century. But these, both the May and the Ablett ones, are different in that they have a peach pruner blade. So if I put one next to the other, you'll see this is it's actually a slightly larger blade, but that's just because Michael May uses slightly larger blades. It's not a difference in the pattern as such, because I have also, I don't have it here, but I've got a Michael May with a straight Ettrick blade, which is still larger than the Warncliffe. So anyway, Michael May does both the peach pruner and the Warncliffe, and I do have an example of both, but let's put the Warncliffe away for a second and let's just have a look at these two knives. So he used a peach pruner. It's clearly marked M. May, Sheffield, England. Don't think there's any marking on that. No, there's no marking on the other side. And this is actually a really good kind of working knife. It's got a good working finish to it. It's not a high shine blade, so you wouldn't be afraid to use this, but I believe it is still a carbon steel, a sort of C70 type steel. So as a fruit knife, you're either going to accept that it's going to get a patina, or you don't use it for fruit. It's a good way you can keep cleaning it and scrubbing it. Now the Ablett has a much better snap, but it shares this larger blade, and I suspect a lot of that is because, as I said before, Michael picked up not just the machinery, but he also, I think, picked up quite a lot of parts and certainly patterns. You need a steel pattern to make a knife like this from scratch, to cut out all the shapes that you need and to get the holes in all the right places and so forth. So it's quite clear that these two were made sort of from the same patterns and actually by the same machinery, I think, in the main. But there are significant differences, obviously. This one has a more sort of a satin blade. This one has a reasonably high polish on it. The handles, it's the hafting that's different on them, but they both follow a similar pattern, but they're different, and that's just because one man made this one and another man made this one. So Michael May was standing at the grinder, the belt sander, hafting this one, and he has done it in a similar style but slightly differently, whereas this one was done by Trevor Ablett. Now, there is another significant difference, and it's kind of almost, I suppose, the element in the room here, and that is that this is a twin blade knife. Now, it's the only twin blade Ettrick that I have. I don't generally tend to buy so many twin blade jack type knives where they're both at the same end. I tend to only really get twin blade pen knives, and then usually on a single spring. This one, of course, has a double spring, one for each blade. I should say, and I never really went over it at the beginning, but the fit and finish of this is absolutely perfect. I mean, one could go through it and point to slight asymmetries or whatever, but that's just because it's done by hand and by eye. But even then, I think you'd be getting pretty picky to find any significant faults. I quite like the cut-offs here at the end of the spring where it comes round to the front. I think they're nicely done. There are different sort of schools about how you do it. When you've got a shorter blade and a longer blade, you can do it. You can bring the springs forward more on the shorter blade, but actually, this second blade is a Warncliffe blade, and it's not that much different in length to the main blade. In fact, you could almost see them as identical on the back, and really the difference is that the peach pruner has a sort of bit of an extension round to give it a bit of a hook. Now, something else just dawned on me that I never said about the other one, the other side. This is there's a blade edge on here which says, hopefully that's sort of in focus and readable, but it says T.W. Ablett, Sheffield, with a crest on it, and then below that it says Sheffield, England, which is well, what I want to see on a knife. I want to know who made it and where it was made. The other blade has to my mind the worst Sheffield stamp. It just says made in Sheffield, and if that's all that a knife has on it, it actually rather winds me up, because it doesn't tell me anything about who made the knife. And sometimes sometimes that's sort of semi-deliberate, like the twisted assisted ones that Arthur Wright made I think they have just that stamp on them, which is, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but I like to see the details. It's much easier later when you come back to be able to look and find out who made the thing, and it gives you some idea about when it was made as well. It's not as easy to date a knife as it is with a say a case knife, where they've got their dating system on the blades, but you can still tell a lot about a knife. And this one was made in the latter part of Trevor's working life. There were quite a lot of these came on the market recently, probably about a dozen. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to pick up all the ones that were available for cash. I did try to get 2 off Congi, but I was too late. The other one had already gone, but I had this one anyway, and I'm really pleased with it actually. I think it's a really nice knife. It's a nice usable knife as well. I mean, I'm assuming this steel is still a carbon steel. I don't know, but it's lovely and shiny, and it'd be nice to keep it that way. But I've not actually used it yet, because I thought I'd show it to you first. But I've had it for a few weeks, and I've fiddled with it and played with it and got finger marks all over it, as you probably can see. But I think this is just an excellent knife. But I also think it's nice to see that, you know, I'm not suggesting whether Michael May will have the same sort of reputation as Trevor after he's gone. I don't know, we'll see. But it's nice to see that the sort of ghost of Trevor Ablett works on through Michael May, even if Michael's knives are noticeably different. Not better or worse, I should say, actually, but they are noticeably different. You wouldn't need to read the tank stamp to know which is which. Anyway, enough of that. Let's just finish with this little knife here. Is the Trevor Ablett 2-blade Ettrick, which has both the peach pruner and the Warncliffe blades, which I think is a brilliant combination. It gives the this is one of those knives where the handle is bit, you know, way oversized compared to the blade, but in the UK that's just a good thing, because if you have a knife with a blade that's that small and has a sort of matching handle, it tends to be a little bit fiddly to use. These have proper full-size handle, and yet are the blade is very clearly UK legal and pretty much non-threatening. So anyway, and I forgot to say this at the beginning of the video, but if you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of this, please subscribe, and remember to ring the notifications bell if you want to see when the next ones are coming up. And as I have a number to film today, there will be a number coming up over the next few days. So remember to ring the bell. And if you have a comment to make, please make it below. They help the channel very much. Even if you just do a little thumbs up below, or equally, if you want to tell me that I'm wrong about something, or help put me in the right direction, I welcome that. I'm not an oracle. I don't know everything there is to know about Sheffield knives by a long shot, but I want to learn, so I'm more than happy to have people add in anything they want to say. Okay, thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.